There are a total of 28 levels combined for Sonic X Shadow Generations, from the Sonic Generations portion and the Shadow Generations portion. And in this video, I'm going to be ranking them, all of them. Hello everybody, I'm OCDisaster, and this is OCDisaster Blue, my Sonic exclusive channel. All the videos on this channel are related to Sonic the Hedgehog. We have Sonic movie videos, we have Sonic X Shadow Generations videos, and a bunch of walkthroughs and Let's Plays. I also have a very special series in which I talk about how I would remake Sonic Forces, because I think the concept is great. It was just the execution of the game that was done poorly. Please go ahead and check those series out after this video. I did a ranking in the last video of the bosses for Sonic X Shadow Generations, and this time we're going to do a ranking of all 28 levels in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Enjoy. In last place is Crisis City Act 1. This is a very tricky level in which precision is key, and if you're going too fast at certain sections of the game, specifically the start, you will fall off quite often. I also found that the reticule for the homing attack wasn't always reacting when I got close to an enemy, making the momentum completely just fall flat. Number 27 is Radical Highway Act 1. Listen, in Shadow Generations, they really love to throw Radical Highway in almost every level, but when they actually do the final two stages of Radical Highway, I have a few grievances. It's really cool to play these stages again, but yeah, they're definitely the most difficult and challenging, which isn't bad for a level ranking, but if you don't have the Doom powers, if you're not doing the Doom Wings for these levels, it can be a little bit clunky at times. My biggest issue is when you're sliding down the building. That section, the controls are very slippery, with intention, but it is a little bit frustrating to navigate through. Due to my bias of side-scrolling in the classic Sonic levels, they're going to be a little bit lower on the list. It's just the way it is. I do like the three-dimensional levels more. Also, the Shadow Generations controls are better than both the modern Sonic and classic Sonic, and the levels are newer, so they're going to skew higher in the ranking, just to throw that one out there. But in 26th place, we have Crisis City again, but this time it's Act 2, where you play as classic Sonic. I think the level design is very cool and unique aesthetic-wise, but everything else is just, it's unmemorable. I like the fact that the end goal moves with a fire tornado, so it looks like you're closer to the end of the stage than you are, but besides that, the platforming is a little bit unforgiving, and the enemies are especially annoying in this level. Next is Radical Highway Act 2. I really didn't like these final stages for Shadow Generations, if you couldn't tell. I really like the aesthetic of it. I think it plays a little bit better than Radical Highway Act 1, but yeah, it's just more Radical Highway. It's becoming the Green Hill of the Shadow portions. In 24th place, we have Act 2 of Planet Wisp. I just didn't really find this level all that charming after the first portion of it. Once you get the Wisp ability, it actually is kind of obnoxious to solve some of the puzzles. They're not difficult by any means, but it really does just slow down the pacing of what's supposed to be a fast game. In 24th place, we have Act 2 of City Escape, where you're playing as classic Sonic. I like the skateboarding features and that you're able to grind on rails, etc., but it's just a classic clone of City Escape, which I get, and it's slightly inspired, but it is annoying to get through some of the pathing for this stage, along with that annoying truck just destroying parts of the stage as you go through. It's a nice touch, but if you're not going fast enough, then it becomes a nuisance, and the problem is there's a lot of things in this level that will just stop you dead in your tracks, and it's not really a skill issue, more so just you're stopping and going a lot. Next is Seaside Hill Act 1. The biggest gripe I have about this stage is that 2/3 of it you are doing side platforming and you're running as if it's like a classic Sonic stage, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of an Act 1 where you're supposed to be doing a 3D modern Sonic spin to it. In addition, this is based off of a stage that's all three-dimensional. Sonic Heroes had no like side platforming whatsoever, so it was just a missed opportunity to fully flesh out this stage. Number 21 is Speed Highway Act 2, the classic Sonic version of this iconic Sonic Adventure stage. I like the aesthetics, I like the traffic that is behind the set, All these stages I think are very well designed from a thematic point of view and from an inspirational point of view, paying homage to the original levels. I don't have any gripes with any of that. It's just, it doesn't feel like Speed Highway is the best way to put it. I played a lot of Sonic Adventure, and a classic version of this stage is unique in spirit, but in execution, it just doesn't do it for me. I actually think Seaside Hill Act 2 is better than Act 1, solely because this was supposed to be the side-scrolling stage, and it sticks to that, and it does a really good job of incorporating the Sonic Heroes assets to the stage. I understand I'm contradicting myself here, but the fact that the classic stage is supposed to be classic, I appreciate it more than the Act 1 version where you're doing a 3D running for like 1/3 of the entire stage, so that's why it ranks higher in my opinion. Next is the second easiest stage in my opinion, and that is Chemical Plant Act 2. It's just vintage, it's just unoffensive and middle of the road. I can't think of any complaints for this stage, nor can I think of any real praises, which is why it's right here on the ranking list. Number 18 is Sky Sanctuary Act 2. I really like the design of this stage, that you have like egg troops being shot out of the Death Egg in the background. I like the stage altogether, besides one portion, and that's when you're spin dashing on the moving hover platform thing. I didn't really like it. It kind of slows down, once again, as I've been saying, the momentum of the stage, and without that section, I really think this would have been an incredible Act 2 stage. Next is Act 2 of Rooftop Run. Although it gets the vibe of Rooftop Run down, it's just not as impactful as I thought it would be. It's very, very quick, but also the enemies and the placements of the enemies are a little bit wonky. There is a part where you can get the invincibility power up, but I swear I'm not invincible every time I get it and then run into something. 16 is Green Hill Act 2. It's just a very simple starter level, and it's very true to the original Sonic the Hedgehog game. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's also nothing really crazy new with it, so that's why it's here. This might be a controversial take, but my next choice is Planet Wisp Act 1. I think the first portion of the stage is incredible when you're actually, in the 3D section and you have to jump off of platforms. You can use light dash to get above places. The pathing and design in that aspect is great, and it feels a little bit more open world than some of the other previous stages. However, it does that thing where once you get to a certain section, you are now basically in a 2D side scroll for a very long time with puzzles and using Wisp. This is an incredibly long level, if not the longest level in Sonic Generations, and it's like borderline like 10 minutes if you don't know what you're doing. So it's just kind of insufferable to get through all the way when you're doing like replays and stuff like that. So that's why it's here, but that first portion, it does a really good job of making you feel fast and like you're really using Sonic's abilities to the limit. And we've made it to the middle of the list. In 14th place, I have Sky Sanctuary Act 1. I think this is a very fun, modern Sonic level. The only thing is some of the path choices are a bit tricky if you don't interact or use the homing attack in the right timing. You can really just mess up your entire run of the stage. But that's more of, muscle memory and really practicing the stage. But once you know what you need to do, this stage can be so fun to kind of speed run and just try to beat your personal time and record in. Next is Speed Highway, and I gotta say, they did a really good job adapting this stage. It's just those dang side-scrolling sections that irritate me. It would have been a perfect level if they didn't incorporate those in. Why do we need those when we have a full classic Sonic version? It just blows my mind. But yeah, this stage is so good besides that part. I really like how fast you feel, the assets that are modernized for this game, the fact that you can do shortcuts, you can launch off of hills, you can jump onto helicopters or planes that go by. It's just a really fun level. In 12th place, we have Rooftop Run Act 1. I love the soundtrack for this stage, but that doesn't really fall into the rankings for these. It just takes me back to the Sonic Unleashed days, and I think they did a better job with this stage than they did for Rooftop Run in the original Sonic Unleashed. However, I only played the Wii version, so I can't say or speak to the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 versions, but I just think they really did a good job of this level. This might surprise some of you, but my number 11 spot is Act 1 of City Escape. I know some of you are probably thinking this would be my first number 1 ranking. I love that you start off in the skateboarding mode where you're doing tricks off of ramps and stuff, and they really did modernize this level while also letting it feel a little bit nostalgic at the same time. However, like some of the other complaints I've had for these modern Sonic stages, is they throw in a bunch of side-scrolling platforming. Why? Why is this necessary? You were doing such a good job with making this almost feel like the original level from Sonic Adventure 2, one of my favorite Sonic games, if not my favorite Sonic game of all time. You almost had it, and then you completely whiffed it. Rail Canyon Act 2 is my 10th place pick for my 28 level ranking for Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's fun. In 9th place, we have Chaos Island Act 2. It was very interesting seeing Chaos Island being featured in Sonic Generations, or I should say Shadow Generations, because we're playing Shadow. This is a fine level. It's just controlled very well. It's designed well. It's not an overuse of the Doom ability where you're like the squid. I can't remember. Is it Morph? Doom Morph ability? They just do a really good job honoring the Chaos Island level, but also adding some cool little features in for Shadow to play around with. Funny enough, right after the Act 2 Chaos Island, I have Act 1 of Chaos Island. I think it's just a little bit better than Act 2, and I really like how you have to be fast on your feet when hitting switches and enemies. You have to zap them with Chaos Sphere to get across, and you really do have to master the Doom Morph ability in order to get the secret spots of the stage. Once you get your hanging and bearings for it, it's a really fun stage, but when you first play it, it might be a little bit more challenging, and you might not like it, but it's that muscle memory that we've been talking about. Yeah, it's good. In 7th place is Kingdom Valley Act 1. What can I say? This was a great remake of the classic Sonic 06 level, done in a much better and much easier to control landscape. I love the little switches and shortcuts that you can do. It feels fast, it feels punchy. My only gripe for this stage is the ropes that you can bounce off of. If you double input too quickly the ground pound, you'll just go straight through them and die. So it's a little finicky in that aspect of the controls, but everything else, the sound design, the look is gorgeous. You really feel like you're playing the best version of Sonic 06. Well, maybe second best if you don't consider Project 06. I'm a Sonic Heroes sucker, and Rail Canyon Act 1 really kind of just made me adore the game even more. I really like the effort and attention to detail they put in for the stage, the background, the assets, but more importantly, the rail control is tight, it's crisp, it's reactive. The switch mechanics are still in the game. The trains and enemy placement are perfect. I really enjoyed this stage, and it really makes me want a Sonic Heroes remaster or a possible fan-made mod game, sort of like Project 06 like I mentioned earlier. It just was so much fun to revisit this stage, and they did such a good job. I really don't have any complaints. The rest of these stages are all really great. I just like some a little bit more than others. My go-to stage for trying to see how fast I can go and just try to beat my record is Chemical Plant. I really like this stage. I like the pathings that you can do. I like that you get rewarded for taking the high ground and being fast enough not to get into the pink liquid. I like that you can react in time if you get like secret little like pathways. It's just a phenomenal stage. I adore it. In 4th place, I have Space Colony Arc Act 2, and this proved to me, being the first Act 2 stage of Shadow Generations, that I don't absolutely hate side-scrolling levels. I kind of groaned and rolled my eyes when I saw that they were adding these in for Shadow Generations, like why does he need a side-scrolling level? But they really do play around with the camera work to make it look a little bit more appealing and like semi 3D. It reminds me of Sonic Rush a lot, where it is 2D platforming, but they make it look a little bit more dimensional, and you play along with Shadow's abilities still. They don't nerf him at all for these levels, and they just did a phenomenal job with the design and overall feel for this level. I really do enjoy it, and it really did get me excited to play the second acts for Shadow Generations. In third place, I have Kingdom Valley Act 2. That's right, I actually like this more than the Act 1 version. I can't really explain why. It just feels fast, punchy, reactive. I really enjoyed this stage. In second place in my rankings is Space Colony Arc Act 1. They really started off strong with Shadow Generations. The level is a bit long, but all in the right ways. It feels like you're playing Sonic Adventure 2, but at the same time you're also playing something different. It's the best way I can describe it, because Shadow has so much faster movement. He's got all this control, all this power, and you just really feel it. It's weighty, but it's also light when it needs to be. I actually got a lot of backlash earlier in the year when I was reviewing the reveals of these stages, and I said that the Space Colony Arc level looked kind of empty, and some parts are, but that's because you're supposed to be speeding through them super quickly. They flush out areas where there's enemies, and they even open up some rooms where there's multiple paths that you can go into, and then of course Doom changes the stage to a portion of Radical Highway throughout. And it's just a really good taste of what's to come for Shadow Generations, and it's just a really well done level, and they added meteorites, so I'm happy. This might be the most controversial of the list, and I might actually get a lot of complaints in the comment section. I think out of all 28 stages in Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations, that Green Hill Act 1 is the best stage. I don't really want to say that because I'm tired of seeing Green Hill zones in my Sonic games. It's kind of overplayed, but it really gives you a feel for, one, the nostalgia, which is the purpose of Sonic Generations, so it gets a pass, but two, the feel of how this game is supposed to go, the scrolling through the stage, the speed, the tricks, the assets, the grinding, all of it is here in this first level, and you feel fast, and it's effective, and it's not too difficult either. It's just a perfect way to display what's to come with this type of boost formula, so that's why it is number 1. What did you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to see your ranking. If not of all 28, please give me like 5 or 10. I would love to see your favorite out of Sonic X Shadow Generations. I'm OC Disaster, and I hope you have a super Sonic rest of your day.